This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from People Forward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self.
Hey, everybody, it is Rosie. This conversation is one of those that on one hand might seem like common sense, but on another hand, it is a great reminder and so needed of some basic human skills that many of us have gotten away from and is contributing to so many of the challenges that are going on in our workplaces and in our communities and in our society. I sat down with the incredible Gregg Ward, and no, we are not related, but you got to love the last name. He is the founder and executive director of the Center for Respectful Leadership, and he has an incredible background from using his theater background in New York and improv to train police officers. He was a journalist in Europe for the BBC radio, and he now has this whole process around what he calls the R Factor workshop, which is teaching the critical skills that we've gotten away from of respectful leadership. And so you're going to want to listen and check out the show page because he is providing a discount for Show Up as a Leader listeners. So you definitely want to make sure you go and check that out. He was the finalist in 2024 for the San Diego Business Journal's CEO of the Year competition. He is just an incredible human being. He had a TEDx talk that is really, really popular, so you want to check that out. Just a lot of really good practical things. And we talk about what it means to leverage the skills of respect, and that respect is really a feeling. And when we have it, what happens? When we don't have it, what happens? He talks about creating an actively respectful culture. And we talk about some of the most common disrespectful behaviors and what is behind them and the impact that they have. And so a lot of things here just to be thinking about of how are we showing up as a better human? How are we showing up having the impact we want to have? And a lot of that comes down to respect and what happens when it's missing and what are the things we need to be keeping in mind. Just a lot of really, really good human-centric reminders, skills, things to keep bringing ourselves back to, because as human beings, we're going to screw up and our humanity is going to get in our way of being the respectful person, the respectful leader we're meant to be. And Gregg is here to help us do just that. So strap in and take a listen. Gregg, I am super excited to have what I think is going to be another geek out session. I seem to have a lot of those on the show. So besides having an amazing last name, Ward, I mean, you can't get better than that. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me on. This is an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, yay. It's going to be a love fest. Well, I want to dive right in because one of the things that there's many things I love about you, but one of the things that I love about you is just your focus on respectful leadership. And I know there's a whole lot that goes into that, and people have different ways that they define respect. And I just think that in our world today, there is such a lack of respect all over the place, right? At workplaces, in our community. And I think just we've lost that ability to treat one another with dignity, treat one another with respect. And it is so needed, I think, to bring some healing and to just bring some connection and just effectiveness back. Before we get into all that, talk to me about how you got to this place and why you're so passionate about this idea of respectful leadership. And then we'll dig into what it actually is.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And I just wanted to piggyback on something you said about how important it is right now. Our research indicates that we haven't seen this level of what we call public disrespect, where people are treating each other disrespectfully in public places like in shopping malls and stores, in healthcare facilities and so on. We haven't seen it at this level since the height of the Vietnam War.
Oh my God.
And yeah, we're talking late 60s, early 70s. And we didn't have all the technology that we have now where keyboard warriors are doing their thing. But what we had was a lot of public disrespect going on at that time. And we're seeing equal, if not more amounts of that in all sorts of different verticals than we've ever seen before. So it's a tough time. To answer your question, though, how I got into all this, I actually started as an actor, writer, director, and producer in theater. And you know how we actors get respected.
It's like Rodney Dangerfield that comes to mind. I ain't got no respect yet.
I don't get no respect. So early on, I realized that being an artist, especially in the theater, is not something you're necessarily respected for. And unless you can move people, you can go beyond their heads and into their hearts. And I also fell into a job when I was a starving artist in New York City. I literally got invited by the New York City Police Department's training department to help them create a different kind of training program that used live theater and improvisation to help train police officers in handling what they call emotionally disturbed persons in the public space. And I'm a starving artist, so when somebody asks you, says, we'll pay you, you say yes. I didn't know what I was doing.
You're like, I don't even care how much. If I can eat, yes,
Yes,
please.
please. And honestly, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was game and I was up for it. And I worked with police psychologists, hostage negotiators, and all sorts of really experienced people to create this program, which went far better than anyone ever could have imagined. Even CNN did a special on it. The New York Times wrote it up. It's just incredible. And what I learned in that time is that the relationship between police officers and the public they serve depends a great deal. If things are going to go well, it depends a great deal on mutual respect. And if there is no respect, then things can go bad very, very quickly. So that's when I really got a taste of how I could use my art to help people understand the nature of respect and why it's so important in all of our relationships. That was a long time ago. That was back in the 80s, so that makes me an old man. But at the end of the day, that was how I got my start. And then eventually I did more of this work. I started creating theater as a training tool for corporations and organizations on respect and on diversity and on civility. And eventually I trained as an executive coach, and I created an alternative dispute resolution process that I call Coaching for Respect. And I'm just all about helping leaders and their organizations develop what we call actively respectful cultures. And that's what it's all about.
I love that. Well, and you know what comes to mind as I'm listening to, so one, fascinating background. I love finding a way, how do you use your background and your gifts and your talents in new and different ways to make an impact? I'm all for that. And it's interesting because there are so many different places in the country where actually improv theater groups now have leadership development and coaching arms, because there is such synergy of the concepts that go into improv and leadership. People don't think about that, but we use various improv tools in some of our leadership workshops as well, because it's a mindset shift, I think. So I love that you were kind of a pioneer in that space before it was cool, because
especially with police officers, that, the regular top brass for like theater and a training program for police officers. Are you kidding? They had such a bad attitude. But when we started doing it, and we hired professional actors, and they were very committed to the work and the ideas and the principles. And we had police officers who were deeply moved during the training program. And we tried to recreate real events and real situations. And the actors were very good at staying in character. We had cops saying that was the best training I'd ever received in my entire career.
That's amazing. Because first responders, we've done work with first responders in various municipalities, and that can be a tough group for sure.
Oh yeah, they were especially New Yorkers. I mean, they're a cynical bunch, very cynical.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so let's dig into. So I love it. It's all about respectful culture. And well, I'm like, wow, when you said we're at higher levels than Vietnam War, but I believe it, because you see it everywhere, people calling people Karens and this and that, and then people videotape it. And there's so much public shaming, and there's so much inability to listen to people who are remotely different than us anymore. And there's just so much hate and negativity all around that is being just stirred up. And then people carry it into the workplace, and we've just lost that ability. So you do these workshops. I know you have your respectful leadership workshop, which we're going to get into, your R Factor workshop. When you talk about having a respectful culture, what are the elements of that? What does that actually look like?
Thank you for asking that question. The most important thing to understand as we begin to look at creating an actively respectful culture is that respect and disrespect are not rational cognitive thoughts. They're the results of very primitive feelings that happen as a result of us feeling threatened, and we go into the amygdala response, the fight, flight, freeze response. So when you feel respected, you say, I feel respected. You don't say, I think I'm being respected. You say, I feel respected. And when you feel disrespected, you don't say, I think I'm being disrespected. You say, I feel disrespected. So it's very much a very deep emotional center that respect and disrespect comes from. It's not logical. It's not rational. So once we can help people understand that fundamental premise, then we could say, okay, how does that play itself out in your relationships at work? And if you think about it, there's an old saying, you don't have to like someone to work with them, right? And I think that's true. There are people that I actually do. I'm sure you work with people that you like a great deal. Maybe you socialize together and what have you, and you work really well with them. But there are plenty of other people that you don't like that. And yet you work really well with them. That's because you have some level of respect for them. So you don't have to like someone to work well with them, but you do have to have some level of respect for them. And so we try to help people understand, well, what do you usually respect in your colleagues? Well, their knowledge, their experience, their talents, their skills. And then there's one that's a little harder to pin down, how they treat us, how they interact with us, how they communicate with us. Are they respectful, or are they practicing command and control leadership, which most people find to be very disrespectful, especially Generation Z and millennials. There was a time, I'm a baby boomer. I joined the workforce when I was, 17 years old, and I went into hospitality. I was treated like crap, if you excuse me. I was treated terribly. And I was told, if you don't like it, there's the door, because there's 5 people outside that door waiting to take your job. There was no expectation of being respected when I was joining the workforce. But that's all changed significantly. And we have to help organizations understand that respect is a driving force that drives engagement, that drives productivity, collaboration, teamwork, resilience, you name it. Respect is that glue that holds relationships together at work. You don't have to like them, but you've got to respect them.
Gosh, there's so much in that we can unpack. And, as you were talking, the quote, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but that is so well known from Maya Angelou, that is, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And going back to that respect as a feeling, there's so much truth in that. And I think back over the course of, my career. So I'm a Gen Xer, but it was also very similar. It's just like, put your head down and work, because Gen Xers were being led by baby boomers. So you think about that, like, trickle down effect. And there was a fundamental shift when millennials entered the workforce. But now, even with Gen Zs and beyond, we talk about this in our book, and I can't take credit for this term, but one of the best terms that I've seen that I think really gets at why we need to think differently right now about generations in the workplace is looking at a divide, literally and figuratively, between what they call native analogs and native digitals, right? So native analogs are actually even millennials and older, because while Gen X, like you and I, like, we grew up with rotary telephones and before internet and before cell phone and all that stuff. And while millennials don't know a world without the internet, without cell phones, etc.
My son was born with one of these in his hand.
Well, that's the thing, is millennials, that generation, didn't get a smartphone and social media until they were beyond their formative years. So they still had to learn how to interact with people and have those awkward conversations, awkward interactions when you're waiting for a plane, when you're waiting for the bus, when you're waiting for an elevator. And then starting native digitals, you're right, we put the devices in their hands, and now it's like they want to know the why behind things. And here's the thing is, go anywhere. Waiting in line at the grocery store, waiting in line anywhere, the second people have an awkward moment or we're inward, we're in our devices, and we've lost our ability to see one another.
Yes, it's true.
Well, and not only have we lost our ability to see one another, but then, to your point, then if I don't see you, like I'm not paying attention to you, I'm so in my own head, I'm in my own world, then it also makes it easier to dehumanize you, or makes it easier to dismiss you, even if you're right in front of me. And so I just think it's so relevant, because I had Zach Mercurio on the podcast. So by the time this comes out, his episode will have already been on, and he's all about the science of mattering and how do we foster mattering. And it's very much related to this whole idea of respect. If we can't honor core human needs that we all have to feel like we are seen and heard, and Matt, like I said, I don't have to like you, but it doesn't mean I need to treat you like crap.
And what's really cool is once you understand the essential core, what we call the behaviors or practices of what we call respectful leadership, it's not hard. It's really not hard. It's more about the intention that you are choosing to engage in these behaviors. And it comes right back at you. It's reciprocal. If I treat you in a way that you consider respectful, you're very likely to reciprocate that with me. And so respect is infectious. And not only will you and your workplace be treating each other with respect, but guess who else? Your customers, your clients, the vendors that you work with. You can create a whole culture of respect that is around your organization like an aura. And it makes a huge difference. And what I love about it is it's not hard to do. It's not expensive. It doesn't require a huge, organizational change initiative where we have to give up something and do something completely different. All we have to do is educate folks on the value of it, help them see that value, and then give them the practices and reward those practices and hold people accountable for not engaging in those practices. It's not hard. It can be done. It just takes a willingness to see that this is important. And I think that's the biggest challenge today, and why you started with where you started with me. Because we have so much disrespect going on in public and in our organizations. And so people don't value it right now. They're not seeing others do it. And what they're seeing is a lot of disrespect. And they're thinking, oh, well, that's okay. And that's the way it's done. And it's having huge negative impacts, and the damage it's doing to our culture and to our society. I'm not going to say it's irreparable, but it's going to be hard to make our way back to create an environment of respect again when there's been so much disrespect.
Absolutely. And you know what I wonder is, I wonder how much is, certainly there's the modeling, or, if you see people that aren't being coached or developed or talked to or having accountability conversations around the importance of respect, then it's easy to go, okay, it doesn't matter. But I also wonder, going back to, you said, a feeling of disrespect, that we as human beings are hardwired for self-protection. So it can feel safer, rather than me having a difficult conversation, rather than me leaning into get uncomfortable because I might learn something that is unsettling, or might make my beliefs wrong, or might make me wrong, or might bring up something I don't know how to deal with, and therefore makes me feel vulnerable. The list goes on and on. In those moments, because it is that amygdala hijack, it feels safer for us to stand in judgment of other people. It feels safer for us to double down on whatever behaviors, and in our brains, we justify why we're treating people that way, because we create a narrative, well, they deserve it. We create a narrative, they don't care. And this all happens so quickly and happens subconsciously. So I wonder too, how much of it's not even just that we don't care about it anymore. It's these deeply ingrained self-protective human instincts that we have, that we're not recognizing are hijacking us, that we're not recognizing are taking over. The way we describe it is, it's a bunch of 10-year-olds right now running around, driving our cars, making decisions in our business, making decisions for our family. It's not an evolved, mature, emotionally intelligent adult. I don't care how many years you've been on this earth. It's that 10-year-old version of ourselves that is taking over. And I think that's what's contributing to so many of these issues we have, including respect. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, when we see our leaders doing this, we think, well, then it must be okay. And it's the leader who isn't doing this, who is trying to behave respectfully and treat others with respect. They're the ones who kind of stand out a little bit because they're different. But what happens is in every organization, they don't even have to be up in the C-suite. They could be somewhere in the organization, and they just are that person. They are that respectful person all the time. No matter who you are, they treat you with respect and decency. They listen to you. They reflect back what they hear you're saying, and they empathize, and they show compassion, and they work with you, and they help and support you. All the things that we want from our leaders. And so what happens is people gravitate towards them. And especially a young leader, a new manager, if they have a mentor like that, they're saying to themselves, when I become a senior manager, I'm going to be like him. I'm going to be like her. That's how I'm going to behave. And so they can be that model, that champion for respect in the organization that people gravitate towards. So it's not like you have to get everybody in the C-suite to say, oh, yes, we roger that. We sign up for this whole respect thing and we're all on board. No, it can be one. One person can change the entire organization if they're committed to it, if the intentionality is in the right place. Again, we're facing a situation where, as we used to say, one of my other jobs, I was a journalist for many years. And as my editors used to say, if it bleeds, it leads. So controversy, conflict, anything where people are behaving badly, that's going to be the first thing you're going to see on your video feeds, on your news feeds, and what have you. It's always going to be something that triggers you, that gets you to, captures your eyeballs. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, it's drama, right? We like a good drama in the movies. That's what sells. That's what captures attention. Yeah.
It's what sells, and we're being fed that all day long. If you wake up in the morning, you look at your newsfeed on your phone, oh my goodness, we're being fed all of this all the time. So it's no wonder our cortisol levels or whatever it is, whatever hormonal levels are going off the charts, and people are really stressed out. By the way, if I can add, Dr. Christine Porath at Georgetown University, arguably the world's foremost expert on respect and civility, she says that stress is the number one driver of disrespectful behavior. And we are experiencing what you and I call VUCA environments, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous business environments, more and more often. There was a time where you'd have a VUCA incident. Remember that ship, that freighter that got stuck in the Suez Canal a number of years back? I think it was called the Ever Given, right? And it just blew up supply chains all over the world, caused all sorts of problems. So at the companies that their supply chains were disrupted, it was like all hands to the pumps, and everybody got together and everybody figured out, how do we work around? How do we deal with this? And they got through that VUCA incident. Well, those used to only happen once or twice a year. Now we're in a polycrisis, a permacrisis. There's just constant VUCA incidents in our organizations. So we're always dealing with yet the latest fire, the latest problem. And so it causes enormous amounts of stress. And when we're stressed, what do? We let go of what people call the niceties. We're less courteous. We're more curt with each other. We're more abrupt. We're more directive. We're more commanding. We're more controlling. Anything we can do to get that sense that we're going to make it through this crisis. We're going to do something and get stuff done. So that's where we are right now. Fun stuff.
Yeah, right. But I think it's helpful, I know in the work you do as well, I always try to normalize what you're experiencing. This is not that you're a bad person. This is part of being human. So when you go back to stress, for people listening, stress inherently, again, as human beings, as a species, we are hardwired for protection. So the way I describe it, again, I'm making it very, very simple, but stress basically shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which is where our emotional regulation and reasoning and executive functioning and all of those things that we need to be good humans comes into play. And it is that primitive part of our brain, that amygdala, the caveman, cavewoman, whatever, that takes over. So when people behave in incivil ways and disrespectful, why stress elevates that, it's because we're on autopilot and we're falling back to our habits and instincts, which are self-protective in nature. And it's either to take over, right, and get loud, or to tap out and get small and withdraw and hide. It's either of those, or it could be a combination. And so I think, in the work that we do, it's helping people recognize what are the signs and signals you're getting hijacked, right? And that you're getting activated or you're getting triggered. Recognize what are some of those things that commonly tend to do that. So you have to know what tends to trigger you or activate you. You have to understand the signs and signals that it's happening and the early warning indicators. And then you have to build the skills and the muscle to circumvent it so that you can choose intentionally rather than being hijacked. So it's critical.
Correct. Because when it happens again, our confirmation bias will get triggered. And if someone's treated us with disrespect before, we're on the lookout for it happening again. And if it does happen again, then we're putting on a pair of sunglasses that say disrespectful person on the lenses. And every time we're interacting with them, we're wearing these sunglasses. So it's self-defeating. It ratchets up the problem. And we have to pause. And this is what we teach in our work, and I know you do too. We teach taking that pause, taking that moment, taking the breath, trying to cool the room down, cool the conversation down, using what we call respectful listening, what you call reflective or active listening. Anything we can do to keep ourselves in the prefrontal cortex, in the executive function, rather than sitting back and just letting go into the base part of our nature, which we're all animals. Let's just face it.
We are. Well, and so let's give some examples. So really tangible. So it's pausing. What are some other things when you think, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm getting triggered, or yep, as I'm listening to this, I can see the incivility. I can see the disrespect around me. I can see it in my workplace. I can see that, oops, I've been guilty of doing that myself. What are some of the things people could start practicing to build those skills or build that muscle to shift to being a more respectful leader and having a more respectful culture?
Brilliant question. Thank you for that. One of the first things that I've been taught to do, and what I always teach to do, is recognize and name the emotions that I'm experiencing. I know psychologists use this very much. One of the most common disrespectful behaviors might surprise you. It's interrupting. We always ask before our workshop, have you been treated with disrespect in the past month on a regular basis? And if so, what's happened? And women tend to report that they've been interrupted quite frequently, and they find that disrespectful. It's not the most egregious thing that happens, but certainly one of the most common. And so what we teach people to say is, okay, recognize what just happened. Okay, I've been interrupted yet again by so-and-so. And I'm feeling pretty frustrated. And what I really want to do is let him or her have it for doing that. This is all what I'm coached people to do. And I'm thinking, okay, what's one possible outcome of that? Well, that could probably make things even worse. Or another option is I could take a breath, keep focused on what I'm trying to do here, because that's separate from this meeting, and then maybe address that with that individual afterwards. So it's the idea of coming up with at least two courses of action that you could take and examining the impact of those courses in the moment before you do something. Now, that takes practice, and that's not easy. And I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'll be honest, I get triggered, and I don't go through what I preach. I make mistakes too. I let loose, and I meet disrespect with disrespect sometimes, but I always know that usually makes it worse, much worse. So it's that taking of that breath and reminding ourselves of what we're feeling at this moment, and then saying, well, here's one way I could respond, and here's another way I could respond, which is going to work better in this moment, which is going to have a better outcome. So if I can get people to follow that pattern, then they're more likely to have good outcomes. And then, especially if they have those conversations, those calm conversations afterwards, those private conversations where you give people feedback in a way that they can hear it, then it's likely that you're going to increase the respect level in the relationship. And that person might not interrupt you again, and they certainly might learn some techniques themselves for how to avoid being disrespectful. That's one way to start.
I love that. I mean, everything always starts with self-awareness and self-reflection, and we cannot be effective if we're not aware of those types of things. And so I think that's super, super critical. And the other thing that's coming up for me is really it's it's that pausing and that reflection and what am I feeling to quiet the reactivity. Because again, since if that amygdala hijack kicks in, which is part of being human, and I love that you're like, I still get this. I mean, I've told people like some of the exercises we use, I'm like, I've been probably facilitating this particular exercise for 25 years. But here's the thing. It's because it works. And selfishly, I need it when my humanity gets the best of me. I'm like, ah, crap, I know better, right? And so I will just say, people run far, far away from anyone who pretends they don't need this stuff, because we're human beings. And even the most Zen person in the world is going to screw up. So there you go, right?
Yeah. If I could tell you a quick story, I was doing a keynote in Texas a couple of years ago, and there were 1,000 people out there in the hall. And I see this guy get up at the back as I'm talking about respect and respectful leadership and how valuable it is. And I'm giving some data and all this kind of stuff. And I see him get up and he puts his hands in his pockets and he's marching around at the back of the hall. And I can tell he's really annoyed. So I stopped. I don't know where I was crazy. I stopped and I said, sir, forgive me. Maybe I'm misreading your body language, but you look pretty annoyed to me. He frickin' explodes. He says, you frickin', and he didn't use frickin'. You liberals, you tree huggers, you're trying to shove this stuff to everybody's a snowflake. He just went ballistic. And you could have heard a pin drop. And everyone in the room, all 1,000 people are looking at me going, oh, what's Mr. Respect going to do about
this? Is going to be a master class, right?
Oh, my goodness. And inside I'm going, what do I do? What do I say? And then I thought, okay, breathe. Okay, you could go after this guy for being a jerk and not being open to the diversity of the generations and how the world has changed. You could go after this guy, or you could show compassion. And I thought, oh, you know what? I talked the way he talked at one point in my life. I felt the way he felt. So I said, when he finished, I said, sir, I totally get where you're coming from. In fact, I'll be honest with you. I said some of the things you just said a number of years ago. And then I started to learn that maybe I wasn't having the kind of impact that I wanted to have on my team and on my colleagues and on my friends. And I'm wondering if you'll give me a moment to help you understand what I went through and how I came to this place. And he kind of settled and he kind of waved his hand at me and he said, well, it's your show. And then he sat down. And so I then kind of went off the cuff and I talked about how my kids took me on in the way I was talking about their generation. I have 3 millennial children, and how I was talking about them and how I was negatively stereotyping them. And they took me on and they taught me some things, and I learned compassion and I learned understanding. So it's a process for all of us, right?
Yeah. Well, it's easier, and I go back to safer, to stand in judgment. Like I think about going back to like the native analog, native digital, there's so much right now, challenges with a lot of our clients, and we're seeing a big divide between Gen X and older and millennials and younger. But then even some of the millennials, we're seeing a divide again when it comes to the Gen Zs, that they don't want to work, that they're lazy, they don't care, they ask too much. I didn't have to, I had to sink or swim. It's the whole, I had to suffer, so therefore they should, or why are we making it easy for them? But then, you got the Gen Zs coming in that are super innovative and want to do things better and want the purpose behind it and have a lot of energy and a lot of amazing things. And yes, there's skills that they have to build in terms of communication and resilience. I mean, we all have stuff we have to learn. But then they're sitting there being met with, we've always done it that way because I said so. And then they're judging these rickety old people. So it's just, there's so much judgment, period, right? There's so much judgment and then disrespect. And that doesn't get us anywhere, but it feels safer in that moment, or it feels safer in the moment, like this guy, or you're someone who triggers you or yells at you. It feels safer in the moment to discharge our hurt and pain. There's that saying that hurt people hurt people. So temporarily, it's a temporary discharge of unsettling feelings, but it doesn't, to your point, it has long-term disastrous consequences. And so I'm curious, because one thing that you and I talked about with all this, so I know we're going to give people, like, you have a course around respectful leadership that people can enroll in. We're going to talk about in a second. But where do you see a lot of the incivility with like jobs and customer service and some of these things that are being just like replaced, like humans are being replaced. How much is that feeding into the lack of respect and our lack of skills of how to be respectful anymore?
I think that's a wonderful question, because I think a lot of people are very fearful right now, especially in those in customer service and even sales. Frontline, client-facing, customer-facing folks are very, very scared of losing their jobs. And indeed, we are seeing major corporations, Amazon, Salesforce, all sorts of folks are laying off people left, right, and center. Now, that's partially due to they overhired during the pandemic, and they were trying to hoard tech folks and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is AI is without question, as they predicted, changing our world. So there's a lot of fear. And so when you're fearful, you're lashing out. And so again, you're stressed, and it's having a huge impact. It's recently I did a talk for the National Customer Service Association. And we talked about this topic of how we as customer service professionals bring a very special humanality, human traits, human connection to customer service in a way that AI never can do. And so we still have value. It's just, how do we convince our leadership that AI can never replace the human factor? And so right now, the course that seems to be generating the most interest is what is called the R Factor Workshop. And we designed it specifically for that new manager who never got this kind of training, this interpersonal skills training, how to give feedback, how to de-escalate conflict, how to interact respectfully. They never got that. They may be a subject matter expert. They may be super smart and highly trained, but then they get put into a management or supervisory role and they flail. And so we created a workshop to help them understand all of these concepts and give them the tools that they need to be really, really successful. And that's what most people are really gravitating for. Give me those tools. Give me that stuff I can use right away that will help me get out of this high stress, high flail environment that I'm working in.
I love that you're doing that, because I will tell you, I mean, not just in the work we do and the research that we've done, but in other guests that I have and other books that I read, you see it all the time, that AI is good at replacing tasks. What AI cannot replace, and what it's actually making even more critical. Like, there was a Workday survey that came out this year that like 83% of employees believe that AI is actually creating a greater need for human connection. And 81% believe that it is elevating the need for human-centric skills, because AI cannot form reciprocal relationships. AI can't do ethical decision making, right? It can crunch and churn the numbers. But when we need morals and ethics, when we need human connection and we're starving for it and we don't feel like we matter, only a human can do that. How often is it like, God, I don't want to press 1 for this, press 2 for that. I get it. But it's like, can I just talk to a freaking human? Hit the 0. I want to talk to somebody, because it's going to be so much easier than trying to use a prompt that doesn't get it, et cetera. But also, we want someone to hear us. We want someone to understand us. We want to be seen. And I think when you go back to customer service, there's night and day. Like, take the Ritz-Carlton approach of my pleasure, and you feel seen and you feel valued, versus you walk into some establishment and you're like, God, they hate their life. They have an earbud in their ear and they're like, what? And they don't even look at you. And it's just like, we're craving it, and we're not taught those skills. To your point, we assume people just pick them up along the way, but the skills are lacking and they're getting worse and worse and worse. And so these human-centric skills of how to communicate, de-escalate conflict, how to be self-aware, how to be more adaptable and not get hijacked by that amygdala, like all of those things are becoming even more critical, and they're going to continue to be critical. And if they're not soft skills, they're essential skills or power skills. And if we're not developing people, it's going to get worse. So I love that you're focusing on that. And I know that you're going to give listeners a discount. So we're going to tell everybody, I'll put this in the intro, but to go to your website. So you guys go to the show page, go to the links, go to Gregg's website, because there's going to be a link to the workshop where you can learn about it, and you're going to give a special discount to listeners. So thank you for that, because it's so needed. So needed. All right. We could talk about this forever, but speaking of the amygdala hijack, part of our human nature is that no matter how much work we've done in ourselves, no matter how much self-awareness we have, we all tend to tell ourselves stories that keep us safe and small. And so I love to ask all of my guests in the spirit of normalizing this messy human experience. Gregg, what is a self-limiting story that you still tell yourself sometimes? And when it shows up, how do you move beyond it so that you can still show up as a leader in your life?
Oh, you had to ask, didn't you?
Yep, I did. I have to go there. There's no getting around it. Nope.
All right. Well, I think like many people, believe it or not, although I seem very confident and secure, I suffer from terrible imposter syndrome. I do not have an advanced degree. I have some specific credentials in my field, but at the end of the day, you are a doctor. I am not a doctor. You have a PhD. I do not have a PhD. And I've always been deeply intimidated by people like you.
I'm so scary. It's terrible.
You are so scary. And I think, why would she be interested in my opinion? She knows so much more than me. Why? And I go through that whole thing of, I'm not worthy. I don't know anything. And then I take a breath and I say, well, hang on. There have been many people who have told you personally, Gregg, that because of your coaching, because of your training, because of the way you helped them, that they were able to make a breakthrough in their lives, in their work, in the way they interacted with others, and that without me being a part of their lives, they would not have had that breakthrough. So I have to remind myself that people have told me that I'm important to them and that I have made a difference, a positive difference. And that I guess I recently turned 65, so I finally figured out that I probably know what I'm doing, that I probably know what I'm talking about, but there's still work to be done.
I love it. Well, it's like circumvent, this is my language, but circumvent the head trash and borrow the belief that other people have in you, right? That it's like, hey, you've done this. So
I like that. Circumvent the head trash. That's good. Can I steal that?
You can steal it. Go for it.
I will definitely credit you with it.
All right, it's my gift to you today, Grant.
Thank you.
All right. Are you ready for quick questions?
Yes. Fire away.
Okay. Fill in the blank. Living authentically is
being true to your best self.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. When the world is presenting an opening, but you don't feel like showing up as a leader, what do you do?
Take a walk, clear your head, remind yourself of all the good things that you have around you. Say to yourself, it's going to be okay. It's just going to take a little time.
Nice. What is something people would be surprised to know about you?
I think people would be surprised. Maybe they wouldn't. I'm a little league umpire.
Shut the front door.
In my spare time, I umpire Little League baseball games.
That has to be so fun.
Yes, it can be fun. I have found that the children out on the field tend to behave like responsible, respectful little adults. It's the adults in the stands who tend to behave like disrespectful, irresponsible little children.
I remember when my son was in Little League, and I love that there were signs like, remember, the coaches are volunteers, whatever. Like, remember, this is just a game. They're just a kid. Like, and I'm like, how sad is it that we have to have these? But, here we are. So, yep. All right. I love it. Okay. What is your favorite go-to movie?
Oh, Casablanca. I love Casablanca. It just makes me cry every time. It makes me laugh every time. It's the best. And it's just a classic.
Love it. Love it. What is your favorite go-to song?
It depends on my mood. If I'm feeling like I'm rocking out, it's We Won't Get Fooled Again by the Who. Okay, totally rocking out. If I'm in a mood of sadness or reflection, it's a Jim Croce song. If you could read my mind.
What a tale the heart would tell. All right.
Yeah, is that song? My goodness.
If you could read my mind.
Is it, or is it Time in a Bottle? No, that's a different one.
No, that's a different song. That's a different song. Okay.
See, one too.
I'm a revolving playlist. I love it. Okay. What is something you can't live without?
My partner in life, she's wonderful and couldn't live without her. I'd be in deep trouble. And music. Gotta have music in my life.
Nice. I love it. What is something in your ordinary daily life that makes your heart happy?
I am a tennis fanatic. I play tennis almost every day. And if I don't play tennis, I'm not a happy camper. So I know there's some physiological stuff with playing tennis that elevates mood and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm a junkie. I'm a tennis junkie.
All right. And what are you grateful for right now?
Oh, I'm just grateful that I have my health is good. I'm grateful that I have a home that I absolutely adore, and I live in this wonderful, diverse community called La Mesa, just outside of San Diego. I love living here. The weather is pretty darn nice, and I get to play tennis all day long. So I guess it's where I'm at is what I'm grateful for.
I love that. I love that for you. All right. One closing question, Gregg. If you could challenge leaders everywhere to practice this one behavior that would create more human workplaces and equip everyone to show up as a leader, what would that be?
Shut up and listen. Shut up and listen. Stop talking. Listen to others. Reflect back what they're saying. Be compassionate. Hear them out. Consider their point of view.
Mic drop. Never go wrong when you learn how to listen better, because it is lacking. Cornerstone of respectful leadership. Love it. Well, Gregg, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for your humanness. Thank you for modeling what respectful leadership looks like. And everybody go check out the R Factor workshop. Get enrolled, whether you are a brand new leader or not. But I know it's specifically for people who get promoted into leadership roles, but so many people could benefit from it. So hopefully we'll get lots of people building those skills, because our world needs it. So much gratitude.
Thank you.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to peopleforwardnetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.